Well, thanks for meeting me today. It's great to see you. I'm excited that we were able to meet.
I'm glad I get to talk to somebody. I
Good.
have questions.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure you've been busy trying to help Jenny and help with her behavior.
Yeah, trying some new things.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, just to reintroduce myself, so my name is Miss Crumwoody. So, what we'll do is we'll go over some history about Jenny,
Okay.
and then I'll just get into a lot of different questions. If you don't understand anything or need me to clarify, definitely feel free to interrupt.
Okay.
Ask a clarifying question. We can just try and make this as smooth as possible. A lot of it is just a lot of information about Jenny. So
Sure.
we might seem like we're repeating some questions, but I just want to get as much info as I can.
Okay. Okay. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And so thank you for letting me view her education records. That was really helpful.
Okay.
I was able to look at her kindergarten records, her first grade records, and then also into this year, her second grade records. So
Okay.
that was really helpful. And then I understand that you have an appointment with a psychologist.
Yes. I don't have the date right off the top of my head, but it's in the near future.
Good.
So I'm hoping some of the information I get from you today is going to help me ask the right
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally understand that. So just to go over a couple things. So your name's Sally,
That's correct.
and you're Jenny's mother.
Yes.
Awesome. And her date of birth, just to confirm, is 2/2/2017. So she's 7 years, 8 months ish.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. And then, so we're going to get in and talk a little bit about her language abilities.
Okay.
So I know that kindergarten, first grade, she seemed to be performing well.
Mm-hmm.
So is she fully fluent? Is she able to communicate full sentences? You know,
She can communicate full sentences. Yeah.
awesome.
I haven't had any, problem with that. She's real good about telling me what she wants.
Sure.
So yeah,
Awesome.
she's good.
And so she does attend public school.
That's correct.
Okay, public elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
Great. So let's talk a little bit about her play skills. So does she have any preferred toys she always goes to?
Well, unfortunately, the iPad.
Sure. I know they use iPads in schools.
They use iPads in school, and everything is iPad and computer. And
Okay. So she really likes the technology.
she likes technology.
That's not a problem.
Yeah.
We see a lot of that, especially in elementary school, once they start really using the iPads and
Right.
technology. Any other preferred toys that she likes?
She really prefers to be outside.
Okay.
She's pretty active that way. She's a pretty physical kid. I mean,
Okay.
she likes to ride her bike. She likes to swing.
Cool.
So, yeah, we try to get a good mix.
Yeah.
It's not always easy.
Yep, I understand. And then like leisure activities, you mentioned, she just likes to be outside. So does she go to the park?
We have a pretty big yard, so we have a lot of activities right here in our yard, and we
Awesome.
have the neighborhood kids kind of
Okay.
congregate here. So we do go to the zoo, and we go to what else do we do? I guess the zoos are big for us, and we've gone on little mini vacations.
Yeah,
So
great. And I guess just to kind of backtrack, so is Jenny an only child? Does she have siblings?
she's an only child.
Okay. And are you and your husband, are you guys together? Or are you
Yes.
separate? Okay.
Nope, we're married. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, he travels a lot for work, so I'm a stay-at-home mom. So I have kind of the day-to-day.
Yep.
Uh,
I'm sure that keeps you busy.
it does keep me busy.
24-hour,
Mhm.
7 days a week.
Yeah.
So just moving kind of right along. I know you mentioned she's going to see a psychologist, and that hasn't happened yet. You have an appointment in the future.
That's right.
Is she taking any medication for any of her behavior?
She is not,
Okay.
and I guess I'm kind of hoping between your input and the psychologist's input that I will find out whether or not that's something that's going to be necessary.
Sure, absolutely. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what her problem behavior looks like. The education records did help a little bit, but I would love to get it just from your eyes of really what her problem behavior looks like. So is she aggressive in school or at home?
Well, from what I hear from her teachers, because I'm not there all day, but she can become aggressive, and I don't know if it's aggressive or physical. She can become physical with other kids, pushing, shoving, kicking if she thinks it's necessary. I've gotten calls because she has bitten kids before, which I
Okay.
find alarming.
Yeah.
She's done the same thing with the neighborhood kids.
Okay. That's always scary.
If she doesn't get her way, that's what she likes.
Okay. So definitely some aggression.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm assuming that's pretty disruptive in the classroom when she's...
That's what the teacher tells me, because she gets removed or,
Okay.
and that's concerning to me because when
Sure.
she's removed from the classroom, she's not learning.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you noticed her hurting herself?
Sometimes she slaps herself. I don't know where
Okay.
that comes from.
Sure.
She might scratch her arm.
Okay.
I mean, it's never gotten to the point where she's had a knife or anything like that.
Yeah.
But,
Okay. Well, I'm sorry. That's always hard to deal with.
it is.
It's always scary.
You don't know why they're doing it.
Yeah. Have you noticed any verbal aggression, threats or swearing, anything like that you can remember?
Oh, I get the occasional "I hate you"
Okay.
because I've taken something away or made her come
Sure.
in, or I've never really heard her use a cuss word in anger.
Okay.
She might have repeated something I said once in a
Sure. Hey, that happens. No, that happens. Happens to the best of us. So what do you think is her single most concerning behavior from your eyes?
Well, obviously, I don't like the physical aggression,
Sure.
especially toward. I'm an adult. I can handle some of that, but I worry about as she gets older. Could she really hurt somebody?
Yeah.
Could she hurt herself? Could she hurt us? I just don't want it to escalate to that
Yeah.
point. I want to get a handle on
So
it
it's
now.
really just the physical aggression towards herself and others that...
And others, it bothers me.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And this is a little repetitive, but so top 3 most concerning behaviors. I think number 1 you mentioned is probably the self-injury, maybe when she's hitting herself, scratching herself.
Well, when she's physical at all with anybody.
Yeah.
I find that concerning. The temper tantrums kind of throw me over
Sure.
the edge,
Yeah. So what does her physical aggression look like? Is it, I know you mentioned a little bit of kicking.
Shoving,
Okay.
grabbing onto your clothes.
Sure.
What else? Oh, I guess at school they said she bit somebody. She's
Yeah,
never
you
bit
mentioned-
me, but she bit somebody at
Okay.
school. She hits herself in the head.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things.
Sure. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. And so, in terms of the intensity of these behaviors, if you're thinking on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being very manageable, 10 being it's a full tantrum, she's uncontrollable, others have to remove themselves for safety reasons. What do you think the intensity of her behaviors are?
Well, I think it depends on the setting sometimes. I mean, like at home, it's usually her and I, so I would probably give that a 7.
Okay.
But I think at school it can escalate even
Sure.
because she's got kids at her own size that she can shove around.
Yeah.
So I feel like her behaviors escalate more at school.
Okay.
Just from what I've heard from teachers and staff and principal.
Okay. Got it. And excuse me, I'm a little sick, so I sound a little bit nasally. Okay, so have you noticed whether at home or hearing from her teachers that her behavior occurs in clusters? So an example would be maybe in the morning you're noticing that her aggression is repeating itself frequently. If you haven't noticed clusters and you're just kind of seeing it across the day, that's not a cluster. And I know these require you to kind of think pretty hard.
Right. I don't consider them clusters at home.
Sure.
There's certain things that trigger it.
Okay.
I don't know about school for sure, but I know the phone calls I get don't indicate a cluster.
Okay.
It's not one call right after another.
Sure.
And sometimes it's not even every other day, and that's a big day for us.
Okay. You mentioned triggers. What do those triggers look like? Do you notice that before she's really aggressive, she's starts verbally telling you, I hate you, or I'm mad, or maybe her face gets really red, or she starts really tensing her body up?
I don't know. I just feel like sometimes it just comes out of nowhere.
Okay.
And usually it's when I'm trying to get her to, maybe we have to leave for this appointment, or maybe it's time to shut the iPad and have dinner, or maybe it's bedtime and I try not to have the TV or the iPad at night, but it's a struggle.
Yeah.
It's a struggle. Getting her to follow a routine, if she's not interested in it.
Okay.
Then she's just not going to do it.
Sure. And that's when you would see her aggression.
That's when I would see the behaviors and yeah.
Got it. Okay, and you did mention, the situations that the behavior occurs. So you mentioned a routine that she doesn't like. Can you specify a specific routine maybe? Like bedtime or getting dressed in the morning?
It's a struggle getting her moving in the morning.
Okay.
It's just like anytime there's a change, if you have to transition from this place to this place, or it's time to do, if she doesn't want to do it, it's a struggle.
Okay.
It's just, it's hard to pinpoint every single night. Yeah. It's not bedtime, but that's one of the areas that occurs a lot.
Okay. And I noticed that there was a mention of her having some trouble sleeping. Is that happening pretty frequently or just every once in a while?
I would say more frequently than I would like. And again, I don't know, sometimes I think she's overtired because she's had a big day at school, and then maybe it's continued here at home. I don't know what she's thinking.
Yeah, that's difficult. And you did mention the behaviors, do they occur during a particular activity? And you mentioned early in the morning, getting her up ready for school.
Right.
And then bedtime. When she comes home from school, are you noticing behaviors during that time, or?
There's a few behaviors there. I think she's tired of following the rules all day.
Yeah.
And so then when she gets home, sometimes I'm kind of the brunt of, it could be something as simple as she doesn't like the snack I got out for her.
Okay. Yeah. Yep.
So.
And you did mention that it seems like transitioning from one activity to another seems to really trigger that.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I hear from the school too.
Okay.
You know, if she's not ready to be done with music class, and she is not ready to go back to her classroom.
I understand that. I was the same with gym. I loved being in gym, and when it was over, I did not want to go to class.
There you go.
When you break a routine or maybe interrupt her activity, does that seem to really trigger?
Oh, that sets her off. I usually get no.
Okay.
Yeah, I get a lot of no.
Sure.
I mean, it's to the point where I don't even want to take her to the store with me because I feel like it's going to be a fight.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's going to be a fight.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's unnerving to me.
Yeah, that's hard when you don't know when it's gonna
happen. Yeah.
That's really hard. Okay. And you did mention it seems like she's not getting her way. That's really a trigger for her.
It is.
In terms of other caregivers in her life, so you mentioned you're a stay-at-home mom, so you work with Jenny, you're around her probably the most.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. And then Dad travels frequently for work.
He does. He travels frequently for work, and we're good at communicating, her dad and I. I mean, if I've set in place a new rule or way to handle something, I always communicate it to him so that he can be on the same page that I am on.
Good.
So that's important to us as a family to have that in place.
Yeah.
Her grandparents, we're very lucky to have grandparents in town that help us out.
Great.
I don't know that they see as much of the behavior as we do because I think it's just a different welcoming. I mean, not that we're not welcoming, but it's just a different environment, and they know, and she knows she's going to have fun.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
So when you're seeing her behavior, how do you react?
Oh, sometimes I do pretty good. You know, I try to talk her down. I am not above carrying her to her room, kicking and screaming, which is getting more physically difficult as she gets older. I try, but man, sometimes I'm sure I'm not doing what I need to do to try to. I react to her behaviors as opposed to trying to bring her down. That's why I'm hoping I can get some help from either you or the psychologist to give me some ideas.
Yeah. And then how does Dad react when she's, kicking, maybe having a big tantrum?
I think it's a little more frustrating to him because he's not around it all the time. I mean, and it's not all the time, but it's just a little more frustrating to him. But he does his best. He really does.
Okay. Does he also try and talk her down, or does he seem to more frequently have to remove her, or even himself?
Actually, I think he sometimes is better at trying to talk her down than I am. And maybe it's just because I'm tired.
Yeah. I understand that. So, what does calm her down?
Well, if you can transition to an activity that she likes.
Okay.
If you've got that bone to offer her, to make her happy that the next thing we're going to do is going to be fun and you're going to like it.
Okay.
Then she will calm down. Sometimes it is like a timeout, whether it's in her room. I think putting her in her room kind of triggers her. So sometimes I just have a chair in the dining room and I'll say, look, you got to have a little timeout here today, right now, in the chair, in the timeout chair.
Okay.
And she seems to work through that. If she can see you,
okay,
she's a little less intense in her room.
Sure. Okay. Do you notice that, does she want food when she's really tantruming? Does she want, you mentioned the iPad. Will she calm down if you give her the iPad?
She will, but
Sure.
then I feel like I've lost.
Yeah. I know how that goes. And I'm sorry, did you mention food?
She doesn't, if she's throwing a tantrum, I try not to encourage that or say that's okay. So here you're having a tantrum, have one of your favorite treats.
Okay.
So I don't really do that.
Sure.
Maybe that'll work. I don't know.
Yeah. Sometimes even offering like water.
Oh, okay.
Can just kind of reset them.
Okay.
But yeah, it's hard when they're really in that.
Yeah, in that mode, you just don't. They won't listen. She won't listen to me.
Yeah. Do you find that you can distract her if you notice maybe a tantrum's coming? Do you notice that you could kind of head her off by saying, "Okay, Jenny, here's your tiles you want to play with."
Right.
Or
yeah, sometimes I can. Sometimes I can just say, "Hey, you want to sit on Mom's lap or let's read a book? Or did you bring a book home from school we could read?"
Sure.
Or try to change it that way.
Okay. Does she like books?
She loves books. She
Great.
loves to read. Yes, that's our time is
That's
reading
great.
books.
What do you think she's trying to communicate when she's having these behaviors? Sometimes kids really are trying to communicate something. Other times it's just big feelings.
Sometimes I think it's frustration.
Sure.
I think routine is good, but I think routine can be tiring for kids at times.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes I have to take a step back and go, wow, she had a long day at school. So you know what? Let's give her some free time to do what it is she wants to do. But then somewhere along the line, I have to say, okay, so you're going to do this for, you can have your iPad for like a half hour, and then we're going to go do this. And that kind of wards off that meltdown.
Okay, that's great. That's good to know. So you think sometimes she's just communicating that she's just tired?
I think sometimes she's just tired. I think sometimes she's frustrated by something, but she just can't find the words at that time because she's so mad.
Okay.
It's easier to scream and yell and throw yourself on the floor than to think through how you're going to tell somebody that you want more gym.
Yep, exactly. That's really good insight. And do you think any of her problem behavior is a form of soothing for her? Does it soothe her when she's laying on the floor tantruming, or?
I don't know. That's a hard one. I don't know if it's soothing to her or if it's a power struggle.
Sure, like maybe just more communicative. Okay. And that's
I don't
fine.
know. I'm totally confused by why.
Yeah. And that was my last question is why do you think she's engaging in this behavior at home and at school?
I think she's a willful child.
Sure.
And that she thinks if she throws herself on the ground and rolls around and yells and screams, she's going to get exactly what she wants.
Yeah.
And that if she kicks and pushes and bites at school, she's going to get attention. And she doesn't understand the positive attention versus the negative attention.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
No, that makes a lot of sense.
I've never talked to anybody about this, so it's hard for me to put it all into words.
Yep. No, that makes sense. And I think at school there's a lot more kids around. It's a different environment than at home.
And sometimes she just doesn't like somebody.
Yeah. Kids have preferred people, and I can understand that. Have you communicated to her teacher that maybe there's kids in her class that she doesn't particularly like to be around or could possibly trigger her?
Well, I think kids at that age are very smart.
Yep.
And they know who they can trigger.
Sure.
And they know who they can make mad.
Yeah.
And I do think she gets some of that.
Yeah.
But how do I teach her to ignore that and focus on the kids she likes? I don't know. I'm not there. I'm not there.
And that's hard, not being there and getting
Right.
calls and
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Sometimes you just like hearing positive stuff about your kid. So it's hard sometimes when I just get negative calls.
Yeah, I can understand. That would be really challenging. Well, let me go through and make sure I have everything on my end. But thank you so much for answering all of my questions.
You're
and
welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I really hope that once we get everything together and after you meet with a psychologist, I would love to hear, their opinion, and we can really collaboratively work as a team and help decrease her problem behaviors and give her some replacement options of this is what you can do instead.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, it was great meeting with you, and I hope you have a good rest of your day, and I hope Jenny is in a positive mood when she gets home.
I hope so too. Thank you so much.
Yeah.